Despite very few of us enjoying international breaks, Arsenal players are out there playing football, and today I'm going to cover how they all got on this international break. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week Arsenal podcast for the fans, by the fans. My name is Mark, and today, like I said at the top, I'm answering the question, how did Arsenal players perform this international break? We had 10 players away. Luckily, Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice and Martin Ødegaard were not part of that 10. We got to at least sit those guys down. We all miss Arsenal during the international break, and I think the one thing we hope for is that our players don't play too many minutes. So to get those guys sat down, recovering. We know Saka picked up an injury in the game against Chelsea. We don't know the extent of it. We know Declan Rice was dealing with a broken toe. I pray it's not his big toe. If it's one of the smaller ones, we should be okay. I'm presuming, seeing he played against Chelsea, it's not his big toe. And we know Martin Ødegaard is still in that kind of recovery phase from his ankle injury, despite doing 90 minutes against Chelsea. We got to sit all of those guys down for the 2 weeks. But that's not been the case for all of our players. They have been out there playing all across the world. And like I say, I'm going to go through them all today, see how they've got on, and kind of sum up my thoughts of whether this international break has been an overall positive or negative for us. And I'll start with William Saliba. And I think William Saliba is a really interesting one because back in the last international break, he actually had quite a tough time. He was blamed in France for one of the goals they conceded, and he came back as well to Arsenal after that and had a couple of shaky moments. The red card against Bournemouth followed that international break. So, ropey, I guess, is kind of how we would discuss his relationship with the French team currently. He didn't play in the 0-0 draw versus Israel for France. Upamecano and Konate played. Konate has been very good for Liverpool this year. I thought he was the standout player in our game against Liverpool. And, I can't begrudge him a place. Upamecano is also a superb centre-back. I don't think he's Saliba level, but he absolutely deserves to be getting caps. And in a game against Israel, is that a benefit to us? We want our players to be playing for their international teams. But actually, a France team against Israel, you'd expect them to win it. I know they didn't, but you would expect them to win it. So it's good to see Saliba be able to sit down for 90 minutes and not have to play. He was back in to play 90 minutes for the 3-1 victory versus Italy that France racked up. And it looks like he had a fairly quiet game, which is good news for us. I think it was sort of one interception, one tackle for Saliba, not much else going on. France definitely had the better of that game, and I just think this was needed. I just think he needed a quiet game. His performances for Arsenal this year have been good, but not great, and I'm quite glad in this international break. One, he got an opportunity to rest for one of the games, but two, he could put right some of what happened in the previous game. I think the French media are very similar to English media. They can be quite harsh on their players when they have a bad moment. And Saliba is still a young man. We've got to remember that. He's still a young man who will go through, which this is a crazy thing to say about someone as confident as William Saliba, but he will go through kind of ups and downs in his confidence, and we have to respect that even our best players, that will happen to them. We have to respect that when they have a dodgy moment, we want them to get back in, especially in international teams, get back in there, prove a point, maybe not even prove a point, but just kind of have a clean slate for a bit, and I think Saliba's managed that in this international break. So positive for Saliba in my book. Only had to play 190 minutes, was fully braked for the previous game, and he's got himself back into a position where I don't think the French media are going to be writing about him after this one, which is great. Another defender that has been away on international duty is Jurrien Timber. Now, Jurrien Timber is one of those players where I think we've all got a little bit of post-injury trauma. He definitely has it, right? Because he's done his ACL. Well, he did his ACL last year. We're all still looking at Jurrien Timber going, oh, is he okay? Is he okay? I had a realisation the other day. It's actually been 6 months since he sort of came back for us, because he came back at the very end of last season. Then he's had a summer, and we've had a few months of this season. It's been a long time, actually, since he has been, injured with an ACL. He's been in and out of the team a little bit this year with a couple of knocks and bruises, and that's understandable. Getting up to speed with the Premier League in reality, even though it's his second year here, he really is getting up to speed with it. But, he's been good for us, and he played 67 minutes at left-back versus Hungary for the Netherlands in a 4-0 win. He actually looked like he was quite forward, on the front foot there. He got a couple of shots away, got a cross in, positive from Timber, and saw some of the highlights of that game. Positive, really. He was on the front foot. To be fair, Holland completely dominated that game. 72% possession. They won 4-0, like I said. Now, they are playing Bosnia tonight. So, Timber has played 67 minutes. I guess we're probably expecting him to play again tonight, but I'm really hoping, as their group in Nations League is kind of wrapped up, Germany have won that group. It looks like Netherlands are going to come second. I'm kind of hoping there is an inclination for the Dutch manager to try a couple of different things. And that might mean pulling Jurrien Timber out. And I really hope it does. Because there are some players we want to go away and play minutes, get sharp. Get sharp for us, so, and not have to invest that time into them. Gabriel Jesus didn't go away, but he's an exact example of that. If he had gone away, I'd want him to get both 90 minutes for Brazil and get some confidence and get some sharpness. Timber's not one of them. He's been playing a lot for us, and with the Ben White surgery that's happened during this international break, we are going to need Jurrien Timber so much. We can't rely on Thomas Partey to do the right back job whilst Ben White's out, so I think the idea will be Jurrien Timber, and hopefully, cross fingers, touch wood, Tomiyasu will do a bit of that job as well, with Calafiori on the left and one of our numerous options deputising for him. So I really hope that they see sense, notice that they're playing a dead rubber tonight, and they don't play Jurrien Timber. I will keep an eye out on that, and I'll be disappointed if I see him there, but obviously hope he has a good performance. If he is playing, he did have a really good performance against Hungary, though. They're playing Bosnia tonight. Another team in action tonight is Germany, and that obviously brings in our focus Kai Havertz. Now, Kai Havertz played 90 minutes. Again, another player I wish had been sat down a little bit more. He looks exhausted at the moment. Not unfit. I definitely think there's two different things here. I don't think he's unfit. I think he is exhausted. His kind of battling and his duels and stuff like that, we haven't seen as much of that. And as well, he's been asked to do a lot more in the Arsenal team, sort of overlapping Saka, dropping deeper. I think if we simplify his role and give him some time off his feet, we should get the best Kai Havertz back. But he did play 90 minutes for Germany, and he's another player that I really hope is sat down tonight, because Germany are in action. I want them to sit this man down. They've won the group. They've won their group comfortably as well. I think they've got 13 points and Holland have got 8 in second place. So they've really walked that group a little bit. Just like they walked the game that Havertz played earlier this week. They won it 7-0 versus Bosnia. He got a goal and an assist. I've seen the goal. It's quite good. He's involved in the build-up play and then just gets on the end of it and finishes it off. Fairly smart finish. Not a worldie, but good football nonetheless. You do have to take into account a little bit the opposition there with them getting 7-0. But I think hopefully he's rested for the Hungary game later. And I do see one of the positives of international breaks is that our players can go away and maybe gain a bit of confidence back. And it's fantastic to see a double contribution game from our leading man. You're never going to complain, are you, if your players are out there and scoring? If Kai Havertz was out there playing and we were seeing him deployed in a role that we didn't want him deployed in, maybe more defensive, and he doesn't get time to get confidence, and actually he's just asked to do a lot of running for someone, we'd all be looking at that going, that is not what we need right now. But if he is going to play, and if he isn't going to get a rest, we want him to score, we want him to get assists, and build that confidence back up. Not that I'm saying he's lost confidence, but he's been out of the goals because of the slightly different role he's been asked to play. So I think that's really positive. Like I say, I just really hope he gets rested, same as Timber. that group is interesting. The way they've cut, those two teams have kind of sailed away from it, and I think that is the chance now for the coaches to really sit some key players down. One player who we don't want to be sat down during this international break is Alexander Zinchenko, and they have a game tonight, I believe, playing Albania. He did not get off the bench versus Georgia. Now, I think they played out a 1-1 draw. Actually, I haven't written that down. But I think they played out a 1-1 draw versus Georgia. I know he did not get off the bench. Mikolenko played at left back, and Sudakov, who we saw in the Shakhtar game versus us earlier this season, was in the 10. And I guess it's a worrying sign for Zinchenko. He's sort of being phased out of the Arsenal team. And I'm not up to speed with my Ukrainian international football. I don't know if this is a pattern. I don't know if this is something that's happening quite regularly. But actually, that's a pretty alarming sign to see in an important game. Sudakov is being picked ahead of him, the young kid with the talent. Because Zinchenko, I should say, tends to play in midfield in the kind of 10 role for Ukraine. He doesn't play left back that much in that team. He's seen as their principal creator. It would be very tough and perhaps harsh for him to be phased out of Arsenal and phased out of Ukraine in the same season. But he's got a lot of stiff competition now. Sudakov in Ukraine, Calafiori at Arsenal. You could also then say Jurrien Timber, Miles Lewis-Skelly, a whole list of people that seem to be playing at left back before Zinchenko at the moment. He can't get a look in. So that's really interesting to me that he didn't get off. He's complete opposite to Havertz and Timber. I desperately want him to play tonight. Again, one that I'll be keeping an eye on, just because I think with these players, with these kind of second string players, we need them playing. We need them getting minutes. We need them getting sharpness in their legs. We need them contributing to a team, a successful team, so that they can come to Arsenal or be at Arsenal and go, you know what, that international break, that's boosted some of my confidence. I'm ready again. I'm ready to contribute. We will not win anything this year. I almost said the league there, but I think we need to be looking at lots of different competitions this year, not just the league. We will not win anything without contributions off the bench from our second string players when there's injuries and stuff. We need those guys sharp. So I really hope Zinchenko gets to play today and he gets some sharpness back. Before we cover Jakub Kiwior, our Spanish contingent, our Brazilian contingent, and Leandro Trossard, who we all know there's some big news about him, just want to say a big thank you for listening. And if you do get an opportunity, please click follow wherever you're listening to us, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I'm trying to grow this podcast. I'm really enjoying doing it, and building on that community would be a really good thing to achieve. So yeah, a follow would be very helpful. If you're enjoying this one or any other episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, just press that button and you'll get all of the content that I make sent to you through your chosen app, and hopefully you enjoy more of it. So thank you very much for that if you do click follow. On to Jakub Kiwior, and I think Jakub Kiwior has probably had the least successful international break and of all of our players. He's had a really, really tough game. He played 90 minutes in a 5-1 defeat versus Portugal. Now, he assisted the goal, which on the face of things is positive. You know, he's getting forward, contributing. He was playing in that left channel role at the back, and he assisted the only goal. So you could say on the face of it, okay, not too bad. But actually, he had a horrible moment. A really horrible moment for Ronaldo's bicycle kick goal. That goal maybe won't get played in the full length that it is, because there's a couple of passes, there's the cross, and Ronaldo hits the bicycle kick. So if you're clipping it up, you might just clip that bit up. But actually, in the build-up to that goal, Kiwior just gives the ball away. He's on the kind of left corner of the Polish penalty area, and it's a really sloppy pass. João Felix just nicks it. Portugal work it straight through the Polish defence. Doesn't look to be much a recovery run from Jakub Kiwior either, just saying, just pointing that out. But a worrying trend starting to occur with Jakub Kiwior, a worrying trend. he seems to have been making plenty of mistakes this year. I remember when he first came into the team, when we lost Saliba 2 years ago. Holding was in for a bit and he couldn't do it. So Jakub Kiwior went to the right centre-back. And I remember thinking, this guy is not like elite, but he seems sound. It seems like he doesn't make mistakes. He's not giving the ball away. He's tidy. That is what you want from a defender who is not a starting defender. You want someone to come in and maybe not be at the level of build-up that you need, maybe not be at the level of, one-on-one defending that you need, but actually is a very tidy operator. And I think we thought we had that with Jakub Kiwior. My concern is that there is a bit of a pattern starting to emerge. This goal, the Portugal scored, Ronaldo's bicycle kick, he has a very sloppy pass for it. The Liverpool equaliser to go to 2-2, you could argue as the senior player in that position, he needs to be pulling Myers Lewis Skelly in, or at least getting into the position where he can cover, maybe foul Salah, deal with that ball from Trent a little bit better. There's some blame there, and there's the obvious one, the Bournemouth one, the sloppy back pass to David Raya that ultimately ends up in us conceding our second goal. It's a pattern, and Arteta will be watching this pattern. Arteta will be thinking about it. And as well, whoever the new sporting director is going to be, he's going to be also looking at how do we raise funds. There's a lot of focus on clubs at the moment with PSR rules, with all the financial stuff that's going on. I really do not know much about this stuff, so I try to stay away from it. But that focus is there on clubs. So clubs need to be sustainable. They need to make sales. And Jakub Kiwior is someone who's had continued interest from Serie A the whole time we've had him. And I think if I was Arteta watching this, if I was whoever's coming in as the sporting director, rumours of Luis Campos coming in, I'd be watching it and going, is that 15 million quid that we can get there? Or maybe even 20 million quid. Because players who make mistakes like this are not in the Arteta mould. They really are not. We saw him move David Luiz on pretty quick. We saw him move on Granit Xhaka even after Granit Xhaka had a brilliant year. There was no push to re-sign him because I think Arteta knows that was the peak of Granit Xhaka's powers. He's still got a mistake in him. He's still got an error in him. He's still got a hothead moment. Arteta doesn't like these kind of players who he can't rely on in the key moments. I don't know if Jakub Kiwior can be relied on right now. He's making a lot of errors. So, worrying time for him. He also played another 90 minutes in 2 undefeated Scotland. Again, he's another player. I want him playing. I want him having good experiences. Contributing. It's great that he got an assist, but I'm more worried than I am enthused about Jakub Kiwior's international break. It's great that he got 90 minutes. Hopefully we can bring him back in. He won't make mistakes for us, and he'll have some semblance of sharpness in his legs thanks to those 90 minutes. But a worrying trend developing there for sure. On to our Spaniards. So we've got Raya and Merino. Raya he played 90 minutes in the 2-1 win versus Denmark, and he was an unused sub for the Switzerland game, and it's a very similar story for Merino. 79 minutes in the Denmark game, same position with the Switzerland game, he was on the bench. It was a quiet game for Merino and a quiet game for Raya, to be honest. Not too much really to go on. My main comment when I was doing my prep for this pod around these two is it's so frustrating to see our players have to do extra flights. So they went from Denmark and flew to Tenerife to do the Switzerland game, but not get any minutes. So it's good if they're sat down and the second game's a home game, so they've just returned to a camp and they're recovering there and training there. Well, I guess Tenerife technically is a home game, but they've had to fly, So additional flights for our players is just not good. And if they're not getting any minutes, I just wish they'd come home. It's a crazy thing to say, It's a little bit contradictory as well to what I said before. Good that they're not playing, but also so frustrating to see those guys have to fly to Tenerife and then fly back to London with basically, they were not used. Were they ever going to be used? I don't know. So Spain have had their group wrapped up. So was the plan always to rotate? it's just a bit frustrating for me. But they had quiet nights overall in the Denmark game, so not too much to go on there. Similar for the Brazilians. Now, Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Magalhães, they have a game in the early hours of this morning versus, I believe, Venezuela. The South American teams and their fixtures are not really aligned to the European football schedule at the moment. So those guys are going to come back very, very late. And that's not a great thing for us. They're not going to have much time pre to the Nottingham Forest game. And my pod on Thursday that I'll be covering is discussing how big that game is for Arsenal. It will be a big game, and we need people to not really have to do long haul flights late in the day. I think they're basically going to have 2 days, which is really not ideal. But we are where we are, I guess is the thing. Gabriel Magalhães played 90 minutes in their first game in a 1-1 draw. Really not good news for Brazil. They're quite far behind in World Cup qualifying, quite far behind Argentina. Now, I know there are a number of teams that go to the World Cup from South America. I think it's their top 4, top 5 perhaps. But actually, they are some way off the Argentinians. And from a reputational point of view, that's never going to sit well in Brazil. Another 1-1 draw, or I should say another game where they've dropped points, is not ideal for them. Not ideal. Gabriel Martinelli, he got 9 minutes and a yellow card versus Venezuela. So basically nothing to cover for him. I expect Magalhães to play tonight, because they really do not have many centre-backs at the moment. Brazil, Militao is their main guy. Usually he's out. Marquinhos is there, but Marquinhos and Gabriel played as centre-back pairing in the first game in the 1-1 draw. So I'd expect to see that again. Gabriel is starting to kind of really get himself into the thinking of the Brazil national team, and they're using him a lot more now. Martinelli, he has a tough ask to be a starter for Brazil. Vinny Jr. is there. That's a tough player to wrestle a starting 11 spot from. So I think, again, we're likely to see him get some minutes from the bench, if anything at all. He may be unused, which would be a good thing, I think. But yeah, really not too much to cover about the Brazilians. The main news topic that has come out, of course, is Leandro Trossard, an injury. Hamstring went after 37 minutes versus Israel. We really don't know what the extent of that is, so I don't want to, cover this as if, oh my word, this is a disaster. What can we do? We don't know what he's done. We know he had to come off. That is about it. That is about it. For me, it is worrying simply from the point of the attacking options versus Forest. And we'll probably talk a little bit more later in the week. But actually, the attacking options against Forest might be quite sparse. Saka, we know he got an injury versus Chelsea. Trossard has picked up an injury here. Martinelli's coming back very, very late. Havertz has obviously, like I said, he's been sat down. Hopefully he is sat down for the second game, but we don't know that yet. So he could be back quite late as well. We could be looking at a scenario where actually Saka can't play, Trossard can't play. We need Jesus or Sterling to come in, and Havertz and Martinelli are quite tired from the international break. That's the situation we could be looking at. So we could be requiring quite a big contribution from one of those two players, Jesus or Sterling, in a game. And we haven't really seen any contribution from them yet. So, for me, that's quite worrying. It really is. I hope that Trossard is okay. I hope if it is something that keeps him out, it's one game maximum, and then we can get him back for the Sporting game midweek. He is a key player. He riles people up the wrong way because I think he goes hot and cold, but actually he's quite an intelligent player. And when you've got good finishers in your squad, take all of the build-up play out, take all the off-the-ball intelligence, take all of the pressing out of that. You want good finishers in your squad. Whether that's off the bench, starting, you have to score goals to win games. Leandro Trossard, there is an argument to say that Leandro Trossard is the best finisher at Arsenal. I don't know if I agree with it, but I can see why people would make that argument. So we need him fit. It can't be a long-term thing. If it's a long-term thing, I really worry, unless Jesus and Sterling can start stepping up. So that's it, guys. That's the coverage of the international break from an Arsenal point of view. I think probably a positive 2 weeks for Timber, Havertz, Saliba. I think they'll come away thinking that was worthwhile time. We really don't know too much, I should say, not too much has happened for Raya, Marino, Zinchenko and the Brazilians. They've had an okay time. Zinchenko and the Brazilians have still got a game to go. But for Kivior and Trossard, I think this has been a negative 2 weeks, a really negative 2 weeks. And I hope that Kivior, his confidence isn't knocked too much and he can come back and contribute for us. And I hope that Trossard is not injured and we can get him playing hopefully this weekend, but if not, during the Sporting game at the very latest. So yeah, that was the pod answering the question how the Arsenal players have performed this international break. Like I said halfway through, if you've enjoyed this episode, please follow Arsenal Unfiltered on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and at Blue Sky. We're there now. I'm on there. It's Arsenal-Unfiltered. And then the Blue Sky thing that I don't quite understand yet. But if you search Arsenal-Unfiltered, you will see me on there. I am blue skying? You would say tweeting on Twitter, wouldn't you? Or Xing. I'm skying. I'm not 100% certain what that is. But I am posting on there pretty regularly. It's obviously a new platform, so come find me on there as well. But for now, thank you for following Arsenal Unfiltered. Thank you for listening to Arsenal Unfiltered. And I'll speak to you very, very soon.